I wanted to make this video because this is the message that I think I needed to hear when I was in the first few years of my landscaping business. And honestly, even a few years ago, it still probably would have been helpful. And by the way, if you're new to these videos, my name is Nick Staples. And over the past 9 years, my business partner and I have grown our landscaping company to over $3 million in annual revenue by offering basic maintenance services. And so, what is this video about? This video is about the reality of growing a landscaping company. And I will tell you that this applies whether you want to grow a smaller company where it's just you and a couple of guys, or if you're trying to grow a big business, and everywhere in between. The same is true. And that truth is that it's freaking hard. And I would use a different word, but I'm trying not to swear too much on this channel. And I know that sounds really cliche to say, like, oh yeah, it's business is hard, landscaping business is hard. And yes, every business is hard. Starting any business is hard. Growing any business is hard. Running any business is hard, especially if it's your first one. And I can tell you it does get a little bit easier, but it's hard regardless, right? And so I think the thing is that I wished more people had said when I was growing my business is that right now you're probably experiencing a problem in your business or multiple problems. If you're new, it's probably every problem. But even if you're a few years in, maybe you're 5 years in, right? Maybe you have a decent sized business. Maybe you're doing $1 million a year or more. Maybe you're doing a few million, maybe you're doing 500K. It doesn't matter. Wherever you are, you're probably dealing with some problem, and you might have been dealing with that problem for more than a year. And so it's really easy to feel stupid. It's really easy to feel like you just don't know what to do, or you just feel like no matter what you do, it's not working, or that there's problems that are impossible to solve. I think that was a big one for me, is that there was definitely times where it felt like this problem feels impossible to solve. And the thing that kept me going, and this is what's so hard about it, but the thing that kept me going was that I knew that there were other people who had already figured out the problems that I was having, right? So maybe it's like it felt genuinely impossible to hire good employees. I can tell you for the first 6 or 7 years of our business, it felt impossible. And we went through, there was one year we went through 70 employees in one year, and we only needed like 15, maybe even less than that. But to put it in perspective, right? At that point, at that size business, I remember saying to myself, if we have to do this, if we have to go through 70 employees and spend tens of thousands of dollars on hiring, like I don't want anything to do with this business. And there were many moments like that. There was moments where it's like you hit one goal, but then something else you weren't expecting happens, and it's just like you just boom, again, you still don't make any money. Or boom, again, like just when you thought maybe it could get better, it doesn't. And truthfully, it really felt just like punishing for years. And there were wins, there were small wins, there were things that were exciting, and we kept, the energy high, and like we tried to stay positive as much as we could. But just the reality of growing any business, but I'm talking about landscaping because that's just what I know, is that it's hard, okay? There's so many things that have to work really exceptionally well all the time. And chances are you have one thing that you're naturally decent at. You might be naturally decent at marketing. You might be naturally decent at fixing equipment. You might be naturally decent at, creating systems. You might be pretty decent at technology. You might be really decent at doing the work, right? It could be one of those things, or maybe it's just a couple, but ultimately you have to be relatively decent at all of them. You personally have to be relatively decent. Not saying you have to be the best personally, but you yourself have to be good enough to get to the point where nothing is broken so bad that it's causing your business to be destroyed. Now, people will say, like, oh, well, this is why you hire great people who are good at the things that you're not good at. And yeah, that's true. That's exactly what you should do. But you also have to be pretty decent at hiring, right? So let's say, for example, maybe you have hundreds of thousands of dollars for some reason, right? which is not true for most people when they're starting or even, a couple of years in. They usually don't have that much money. But let's just take that extreme example. Let's say you have hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? So your bottleneck is not cash. You could go out and you could hire, hypothetically, you could afford to hire, I should say, a great operational person. Maybe you're good at marketing, right? You have the money for that. You have the money for a garage. You have the money for equipment, right? But you are terrible at hiring. You don't know how to interview people. You don't know how to set it up so you have background checks. Maybe you're really bad with finance, or maybe you're really good at finance. Either way, if you're missing one piece, things will be most likely pretty bad. And the bigger you make the business when you are still missing pieces, the worse it's going to be, the more painful it's going to be. And again, I'm not putting this out there. I'm not saying these things to make you feel like super negative in that, you shouldn't do it or it's not worth it. It is worth it, in my opinion, assuming that at least to some degree you like running a business, you like owning a business, you like, learning new things, right? Assuming that's true. If that's not true for you, then yeah, maybe you consider doing something else, which is totally fine. So if you need permission to hear that, you can get it from me, some random guy on YouTube. But if you really like running a business and you're really set on, building something great for yourself, whether it's small, big, medium size, whatever, just know that it's 100% normal for it to be painfully hard. And if you're feeling like literally it's impossible, I don't know what the heck I'm supposed to do, that's literally part of the process. That's part of the process of it being hard. You're probably used to, from my experience, and this was true for me, most people are not afraid to work a lot, right? So for some people, working an incredible amount of hours is really hard. Getting home, leaving your house at 6 a.m., getting home at 7 p.m., and then still doing invoices and things like that when you get back. For some people, that's just like they don't have it in them, or maybe they do, but it's so hard. I can tell you for me that when I was first starting out my business, that was not hard for me at all. Working 12, 16 hours a day, 6 days a week wasn't hard. There was never, there were times where I'm like, I'm exhausted, this is terrible. But like, it didn't feel impossible. Like if that was the thing I had to do for a few years to make it successful, there was no doubt in my mind I could do it. But the problem is that's not what it is, the thing that is actually going to drive you forward, right? It's skills. It's learning new things, new strategies, and actually being able to implement them. And the problem is you learn a new skill, you learn a new strategy. You could watch 50 of my videos, all with a great strategy on how to do operations, marketing, finance, office, everything, every piece of the puzzle I could give you. And you could be like, I know how to do it. And then you could go do it and it could just not work. And you won't know why. And so you have to keep doing it over and over again. Meanwhile, there's 4 other things in your business that are happening that just aren't also working. So if you're just getting into the business or if you're a few years in, I can tell you that if it feels super hard, if it feels like it's not worth it, then you're right. It is super hard, but you're wrong when you say that it's not worth it. There are people out there who have done it successfully at all different scales, all different sizes, all different service types. There is an example that proves that it's possible. Okay. We're not Elon Musk. We're not trying to colonize Mars. We're not trying to do things that are like literally, have never been done before. Okay. We're trying to grow a successful home service business, and successful business means different things to different people. But I promise you, there's an example out there of one that is exactly or very close to what you want yours to be. And so if you agree with me and you believe that's true, then what I will tell you is just continue to keep going, to keep learning, and to keep reiterating on the things that you're learning, and just know it's going to take multiple tries. And if you're like 7-8 years deep and it still feels impossible, just remember that you've already learned so much. It just might be that you've only learned 85% of what you need. And when you get that last 15%, that's the massive unlock. It could just be one piece missing if you've been in it for a long time. If you haven't been in it for a long time, there's probably multiple pieces missing, but that's okay. That's normal. So if you've been feeling stuck or whatever, hopefully this video is helpful. I feel like this was the exact message that I needed after year 3, 5, and 7, and maybe even 8. And we're at year 9. So I don't know. For what it's worth, hopefully that helps.